All right, everyone. We start off today by diagnosing Nancy Pelosi as being absolutely, completely fucking crazy. Her new idea, and Pritzker and others are sort of mulling the concept that local and state law enforcement should be arresting ICE agents. That is, that if they do their job, which is literally constitutionally incepted as an executive power for a reason, that they should be detained. This is a disaster scenario that can only lead to negative results. Let's say you have a group of people in a house, and the federal government has become aware of the fact that there are people that are there illegally. There might be other criminal activity, but we'll just assume that they're just illegally in the country, so they're not doing anything else wrong. Personally, I don't slate them immediately for deportation because it's not really a priority anyway, but there might be an ICE raid. And they travel along flanked by locals and staties and stuff like that because some of these states, they don't want the ICE agents operating there. Imagine you get into a situation where they conduct a raid, and in the melee, it's not entirely clear who has seniority over which issues. Everyone's heavily armed. Unlike the militia, which is being steadily disarmed by the left, the police do actually still have guns. And so does ICE, by the way. They move in trying to arrest people, but they're not being allowed to arrest them. You may end up in a weird situation where you have LEO versus LEO. That is, that some stadies or some local yokels might get a bit uppity, or maybe the sheriff's fucking department, along with ICE, possibly other federal agencies that might be involved at the same time. Hell, it might even be the FBI. Who pulls rank? Well, I mean, I would read it as, well, it's federal law, it's related to immigration. The federal government is predominantly responsible for that, by the way. None of these institutions here that have a problem with what Trump's doing with ICE ever had a problem with the fact that the federal government ignored the southern border and pulled rank on that, preventing states from exercising their ability to police their own southern border. Since you have quite clearly made this a federal issue, you have no legal leg to stand on to prevent the federal agents from fucking doing their job. Finally, ICE is actually allowed to do its job, which was incepted, by the way, when Nancy Pelosi's rambling about maybe they should be jailed. You were in Congress when these laws were passed. You've been there since the fucking 1970s or something. You've been in there more than half of your adult life. Way more than just half of your adult life. What are you complaining about? You probably voted in favor of some of the measures that are actually being legally used right now to deport people. The fact is that they just want to use, and I feel sorry for people that came to the country illegally over last generations. Because, you're just being used as pawns by these people. Mm. By the way, delicious, delicious tea from Jam and Bean. I'm sure you're surprised about this. But, I mean, you voted in favor of some of these measures. You voted against some of them too, I believe, if I remember correctly. I briefly skimmed Pelosi's voting history. It seems to be sort of 50-50 more than anything else. So you're not exactly really a hardliner on the issue at all. You're just complaining about the specific federal authority that happens to be imposing laws that, again, you were party to. You were part of those congressional situations. The fact is that our immigration law was not magically concocted. It wasn't brewed up in a cauldron by an evil Donald Trump with a witch hat on right before Halloween or anything like that. This was incepted over fucking centuries of time, especially in the last roughly 60 years. That's basically the timeline for most of these rules that you're working with. Donald Trump was a kid when the first immigration laws that are currently pertinent were incepted. How the fuck is he responsible? So that makes no sense. Secondly, again, you've got the situation where you might get two law enforcement officers attempting to arrest one another and not necessarily knowing who is actually allowed to arrest the other person. Pertinent again to the proceedings. Is it 10th Amendment supremacy? Well, And then you get the staties. Is it local jurisdiction? Well, then you get the townies. Is it a federal case? Well, I would say with immigration it certainly is, but you have to show that in court. You don't necessarily know that everyone in the building is an immigrant when you clear it out. So then it falls under federal purview, but only kind of, sort of. Then you've got the judges and the courts that get involved, and it becomes even more confusing. Nancy Pelosi is really, I think, trying to start riots more than anything else. I think that because the Democratic Party is so badly embittered, is so badly run at the moment, I think that the Pelosi's, the more pragmatic leaders of the party, think that the best thing that they can do is cause chaos. I think that they want that sort of situation. Imagine a situation in which a bunch of sheriffs, FBI agents, ICE agents, townies, stadies, maybe fucking deputized militia or something. They're all arresting each other. It'll be like that scene from Super Troopers where the stadies and the townies get into it over who has jurisdiction, and then they end up arresting a fucking another after fighting, and then they have to do like a hostage exchange situation. Good movie, by the way. You'll probably want to be stoned on marijuana when you watch it. Just saying, disclaimer, I'm not encouraging you to smoke it. I'm just saying you probably would want to. But it'd be a little bit like that scenario. In such a scenario, nothing makes goddamn fucking sense. Federal law enforcement does have the right to police immigration. It is self-evident. This is beyond debate. This is one of the main functions of the executive branch of the United States, to defend the border. This is one of its primary functions. You can't just have external diplomacy, of course. You've got to be able to monitor the interior of the country, too. The militia and other groups can compensate for most of the rest, and we certainly don't need a top-heavy bureaucracy. But if you get into a situation where 5 or 6 different law enforcement agencies are involved with the same task, and you have members of Congress, again, Pelosi, who actually was part of the voting involved with the immigration law, trying to stand in the way and saying, oh no, just fucking arrest them. That's nuts, dude. And again, others are weighing in on this, pretending like mayors have authority over federal jurisdiction sort of things. You don't. The problem, though, again, there's always a twofold problem. The problem is you have to drag him in front of a court in order to establish, apparently, that the federal government has the right to actually carry out the laws that were already incepted by Congress. There appear to be courts that do not understand this, so they're doing a bunch of judge shopping at the moment. People do that all the time. This is a clear-cut instance of absolute insanity. Normally, I use the term crazy in a hyperbolic manner. You're acting crazy. I'm not actually saying that you're nuts. I'm saying that you're acting like you're nuts. In Pelosi's case, though, I think that she might actually have gone off the goddamn deep end. She should probably be excused from her congressional role because now she's endangering people's lives. This is going to get someone killed, dude. You end up with that many law enforcement agencies all competing to see who's in charge, while you've got a bunch of immigrants yelling in the background and all sorts of shit is going down. You're going to end up with a hot firing scenario, and it ain't going to be pretty. And Pelosi will be centrally responsible, but who will get blamed? It'll be Trump, because he sent the ICE agents in the first place. Even if ICE isn't involved, he'll still get blamed somehow. You just watch. This'll probably happen. That's about all. Peace out.